When people think about wolves, they imagine hunters, pack animals, apex predators taking down elk in the wilderness. That's the image, the howl, the chase, the kill. But in November 2025, scientists published footage that doesn't fit that image at all. A coastal wolf, alone on a beach, pulling a crab trap from the ocean, using human fishing equipment to get food, not stealing, not scavenging, using. Welcome to WildLeadTube, where wildlife intelligence, verified science, and evolutionary secrets collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. This isn't a trained animal. This isn't a dog that learned tricks. This is a wild wolf in British Columbia figuring out how to fish with tools. And it's triggering a debate that's splitting the scientific community. Because if this counts as tool use, wolves just joined an incredibly exclusive club. Primates, elephants, dolphins, crows, and now maybe canids. But here's the question nobody's asking. If wolves can do this in one protected territory, what are they capable of everywhere else? And what have we been preventing them from learning? The footage came from the Heitsack Nation territory, a place where wolves have been protected for generations, where they're allowed to live without persecution, to explore, to experiment. And what scientists are seeing there is rewriting the textbooks. But to understand why this discovery matters, we need to follow the evidence. Let me show you exactly what happened on that beach. The story begins with camera traps. Researchers set them up along the British Columbia coast to study coastal wolves. These aren't your typical wolves. They live between the forest and the ocean. They eat salmon, they hunt seals. They've adapted to a marine environment. But what the cameras captured in 2024 was something else entirely. Frame 1. A wolf approaches the shoreline at low tide. Frame 2. The wolf bites down on a buoy. Frame 3. The wolf pulls. Frame 4. A crab trap emerges from the water. The study was published in Ecology and Evolution in November 2025. I've linked the source in the description. First documented case of wild canid manipulating human fishing equipment for food acquisition. Here's what the wolf is doing. Commercial crab traps sit in shallow water, marked by floating buoys. At low tide, the buoys are accessible from shore. The wolf grabs the buoy, pulls the line, drags the trap closer, then opens it or breaks it to get the bait inside. It's a 4-step sequence. Recognize the opportunity, access the tool, manipulate the tool, extract the resource. Sound familiar? It should. That's the same sequence crows use to get food from vending machines. The same sequence orangutans use to fish termites from mounds. But here's what makes this fascinating. The Heitsack people already knew. 4 generations, coastal communities reported wolves interfering with fishing equipment, pulling traps, taking bait. The stories were there. The observations were documented. But science wasn't listening. It took camera trap proof for researchers to take it seriously. And even then, the debate started immediately, because the question isn't just what the wolf did. The question is whether it counts as tool use at all. Tool use has a strict definition in animal behavior science. The organism must hold or manipulate an object. The object must be used to achieve a goal. And the use must show some level of understanding. Wolves meet 2 of those criteria easily. They're manipulating the rope and buoy. They're achieving the goal of getting food. But here's the catch. The wolf isn't holding a tool to get food. The wolf is manipulating a human-made structure that already exists. It's using the trap, not making one, not modifying one, using one that's already there. So is that tool use? Or is that just opportunistic exploitation of human infrastructure? Tool use isn't binary, it's a spectrum. At one end, you have chimpanzees crafting spears to hunt bush babies. That's unambiguous. At the other end, you have hermit crabs using shells. That's protection, not tool use. Wolves pulling crab traps fall somewhere in the middle. They're not making tools, but they're solving a problem with an external object. They're showing flexibility. They're learning a new behavior that doesn't exist in their evolutionary history. And here's what nobody mentions. No other wild canid has been documented doing anything like this. Not coyotes, not foxes, not dingoes, just coastal wolves in protected territory. That suggests something important. The cognitive ability might be there across all canids, but the opportunity, the safety, the freedom to experiment, that's what's missing. Coastal wolves aren't the only predators adapting to marine environments. Sea otters use rocks to crack open shellfish. That's tool use. Dolphins use sponges to protect their snouts while foraging. That's tool use. But those species evolved in the ocean. Wolves didn't. Wolves are terrestrial predators that moved to the coast and figured it out. In evolutionary time, that's incredibly recent. And what they're doing with crab traps shows problem solving that rivals marine specialists. They're recognizing human fishing technology, understanding its function, and exploiting it successfully. That's not instinct, that's intelligence. But here's where it gets more interesting. This isn't one wolf doing something random. Multiple wolves in the same territory show the same behavior. That means it's spreading. One wolf figured it out, others watched, others learned. Now it's part of the local culture. Wolf packs have cultural traditions, hunting strategies that differ between populations, travel routes passed down through generations, communication patterns unique to specific groups. Crab trap fishing could be the newest addition, a learned behavior, a cultural innovation, passed from wolf to wolf in one protected corner of British Columbia. See the pattern. When predators are safe, they innovate. For centuries, wolves were exterminated across North America, hunted, trapped, poisoned, driven to near extinction in the lower 48 states. In most places, wolves that approached human infrastructure died. The curious ones, the experimental ones, the ones most likely to figure out new behaviors, gone. What we're seeing in Heitsack territory is what happens when you remove that barrier, when wolves can exist without constant persecution, when they can afford to be curious. And what they're showing us is cognitive flexibility we never knew existed, because we never gave them the chance. The trick is simple. Wolves are intelligent, social, adaptable predators. They solve problems. They learn from each other. They exploit new food sources. We knew all of that. What we didn't know is that those abilities extend to human technology. That wolves can look at a crab trap and understand. Pull this, get food. That's abstract thinking. That's cause and effect reasoning. That's the kind of cognition we normally associate with primates and corvids. Dr. Chris Darrimont from the University of Victoria calls this behavioral plasticity, the ability to adapt behavior to new contexts. You'll find the source link in the description. Let me show you what cognitive abilities this requires. First, object permanence. The wolf understands the trap exists under the water, even when it can't see it. The buoy represents something below. Second, tool-mediated foraging. The wolf recognizes the rope as a connector. Pull the rope, move the trap. Third, persistence. Pulling a trap from the water takes time and effort. The wolf maintains the behavior without immediate reward. Fourth, social learning. Other wolves are copying the strategy that requires observation, memory, and imitation. These aren't simple skills. These are the building blocks of complex cognition. So, back to the question, is this tool use? Some researchers say yes. The wolf is using an external object to acquire food. That's the definition. Others say no. The wolf isn't creating or modifying the tool. It's exploiting existing human infrastructure. That's different. But here's what they're missing. The debate itself proves the point. We're arguing about whether wolves are smart enough to use tools because we never expected them to be in the conversation at all. Wolves have been underestimated, and this footage from one protected beach is just the beginning of what we're about to discover. What makes this dangerous today is that we're losing the places where wolves can do this. Protected territories like Heitzack Nation land are rare. In most of North America, wolves still face hunting, trapping, habitat loss. Right now, as we speak, the cognitive potential we're seeing on this British Columbia beach is being suppressed everywhere else, not because wolves lack the ability, because they lack the safety. Think about that. We're discovering intelligence in wolves that only appears when we stop killing them. What else are we preventing? What other behaviors are locked behind fear and persecution? Here's the paradox. We protect wolves to preserve ecosystems. We study wolves to understand predators. But we're only now realizing that protection unlocks cognitive abilities we didn't know existed. Wolves in Yellowstone learned to hunt elk differently after reintroduction. Wolves in Minnesota adapted to human landscapes. Coastal wolves developed marine hunting strategies. Each population, when given space and time, innovates. The crab trap behavior isn't an isolated case. It's part of a pattern. Wolves are more adaptable, more intelligent, more flexible than science gave them credit for. A 2024 study in the Journal of Mammalogy found protected populations show 3 times more novel behaviors. All sources are linked in the description. Right now, wolf populations are recovering in parts of Europe and North America. But recovery means numbers, population size, territory expansion. What we're not measuring is cognitive recovery, the return of behaviors that were exterminated along with the animals, the cultural knowledge that was lost when experienced wolves were killed. If coastal wolves can learn to fish with human equipment in 1 generation, what could wolves relearn everywhere else? What behaviors existed before persecution? What traditions were erased? We're not just recovering an apex predator. We're recovering an intelligent, adaptable species, and most of the world will never let them show it. So what should you take from this? First, intelligence requires safety. Wolves can't innovate when they're running for their lives. The crab trap behavior only appeared in protected territory. That's not a coincidence. Cognitive abilities emerge when survival pressure decreases. True for wolves. True for every species. Second, underestimation has consequences. For decades, science assumed wolves were impressive hunters but limited problem solvers. That assumption shaped policy, shaped management, shaped public perception. The camera trap footage from British Columbia proves we were wrong. And that means our conservation strategies are based on incomplete understanding. Third, Tool use definitions matter less than the behavior itself. Whether this officially counts as tool use is a semantic debate. What matters is that wild canids are showing flexible, intelligent, learned behavior with human technology. That's the discovery, not the category we put it in. Animal intelligence isn't hiding in the jungle, waiting to be discovered. It's hiding behind barriers we created: persecution, habitat loss, human intolerance. The wolves pulling crab traps in Heitsack territory aren't special. They're just safe. Safe enough to experiment. Safe enough to fail. Safe enough to learn. Right now, we're at a critical moment. Wolf recovery is happening. But are we recovering the species, or just the population? Because those are different things. One is numbers. The other is the full expression of what wolves can be. And if we're only doing the first, we're missing the point entirely. If this changed how you see wolves, if you finally understand that we've been underestimating their intelligence because we never gave them the chance to show it, subscribe, because the next video reveals something even more surprising. What happens when orcas, the ocean's apex predators, start making tools from kelp? First marine mammal toolmakers. And it's happening right now. The answers aren't hiding in the future. They're written in the behavior we're finally safe enough to observe. WildLeadTube has the evidence. I'll show you where to look.